What would you do if the people you loved most made you feel like an afterthought in their lives? Not just forgotten, but erased? Hi, my name is Carol. I'm 68 years old, and this is the story of how I paid for a wedding I never got to attend. A wedding that should have been the happiest day of my son's life and mine too, but instead became the most painful lesson I've ever learned about loyalty, entitlement, and silence. Before we begin, if you enjoy true life stories about betrayal, family drama, and unexpected twists, please hit the subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's go back to where it all started. My son Brandon has always been a bit independent. Even as a little boy, he liked doing things his own way. I was a single mother for most of his childhood. His father walked out when Brandon was barely 6, and from that day on, it was just the two of us against the world. I worked 2 jobs first as a receptionist, then later as a night shift cleaner just to keep the lights on and a roof over our heads. Brandon never lacked love. I missed school plays sometimes, but I never missed a chance to tell him how proud I was. And when he got into college, I sold my car and dipped into my retirement savings just to help him afford the books and meals his scholarship didn't cover. I never asked for anything in return. That's what mothers do, right? After college, Brandon moved 3 states away. He got a decent job in tech and started dating a woman named Jenna. I only met her twice in person, once during a Thanksgiving visit and once over a rushed brunch when they were passing through town. Jenna was polite, beautiful, but cold. She never really looked me in the eye. I remember thinking, well, maybe she's just shy. They dated for about 2 years before Brandon called to tell me they were getting married. He sounded so excited. Mom, I'm proposing next weekend, he said. I've got the ring and everything. I was over the moon. I asked a dozen questions: where, when, how, and then I did something maybe foolish, maybe motherly. I offered to pay, not for everything, but for a big chunk of the wedding, $15,000 to be exact. I had that money saved for emergencies, but I thought, this is my baby's big day. What could be more important than this? He hesitated at first, said they could handle it, but I insisted. I wired the first $5,000 the next week. After that, things went quiet. I'd call or text asking how the planning was going. Sometimes I'd get a one-word reply, sometimes days of silence. At one point, I even said, half joking, I hope you two haven't eloped without me. Brandon just laughed and said, don't be dramatic, Mom. Then one day, about 6 months later, I saw a photo. A photo of Brandon and Jenna smiling under an arch of white roses, her in a gown, him in a tux. Dozens of guests behind them. It was posted by a mutual friend on Facebook. I stared at it for a full minute, my brain refusing to believe what I was seeing. I hadn't received a call, a text, not even an email. I wasn't there. I wasn't invited. My hands were trembling as I zoomed in on the photo. There was no denying it. This wasn't an engagement party or a rehearsal dinner. It was the wedding, the one I helped pay for. I kept staring at Brandon's smile. How happy he looked, how complete, and yet no trace of me, no chair left empty in honor of his mother, no mention in the caption, just hashtags. Number finally married, number best day ever. I scrolled through the comments. Gorgeous bride. Brandon, you clean up nice. Beautiful ceremony. Still nothing. Not one person saying, where's your mom? Because apparently I was never meant to be there. For a moment, I thought maybe there had been a mistake. Maybe there was an invitation and it got lost in the mail. Maybe they had a last-minute change. Maybe Jenna's family pushed for something small and they just forgot to tell me. But no, There were at least 100 guests in those pictures. A full ceremony, a reception with dancing and speeches. I wasn't invited on purpose. I sat there at my kitchen table until the sun went down, staring at the screen, heart pounding. My phone was in my hand for an hour before I could bring myself to call him. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Mom," he said, casual as ever. I couldn't believe it. Not even a hint of guilt. I went straight to the point. "I saw the photos, Brandon." Silence. Then, "Yeah, look, I was going to call you." "Call me? After the fact?" My voice cracked. "I paid for part of that wedding, and you didn't even tell me it was happening?" He sighed. "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me what it was like." There was a long pause. Then he said, "Jenna didn't want a big family thing. She wanted something more controlled, low stress." Low stress? I nearly choked on the words. "So not inviting your mother was less stressful?" He didn't answer. That silence said everything. And then I heard it in his voice. Resignation, not apology, just tired avoidance. "We just didn't think you'd fit in with the vibe, Mom." Didn't fit in with the vibe after everything I'd done. The sacrifices, the support, the money. I hung up. I didn't cry that night. The tears came the next morning while I was making coffee. They came in waves. Every time I thought I was done, another wave hit me, like mourning someone still alive. A few days later, I got a handwritten note in the mail from Jenna. It read, "Carol, we appreciate your contribution to the wedding fund. Please understand this day was about our vision and comfort, not obligations. Hope you understand. Best wishes, Jenna." There wasn't even a signature from Brandon. No photo, no program, nothing. I thought about demanding the money back, about legal action. But what would that do? Humiliate me further? Instead, I did something else. I gathered every photo I had of Brandon from his childhood birthdays, Christmas mornings, graduations. I took them down from the frames. One by one, I placed them in a box. I labeled it past. Then I put it in the attic. That doesn't mean I stopped loving him. I don't think a mother ever truly does. But I stopped offering my love where it was no longer welcomed. The days that followed felt like I was living in someone else's life. I went through the motions, feeding the cat, watering the plants, paying the bills, but I wasn't really there. The betrayal clung to me like the scent of burned toast, faint but always lingering. My friends noticed. At first, I avoided telling them what had happened. I was embarrassed. How do you explain to someone that your only son got married and didn't think you belonged there? That you helped pay for a party you weren't even invited to? But secrets rot in the dark. So eventually I told Judy, she's been my best friend since nursing school. And if anyone could sit with my shame without judging me, it was her. She listened, quietly. When I finished, she didn't gasp or rush to defend him. She just said, "Honey, you didn't deserve that." Those 5 words broke me open. That weekend, she invited me over for wine and reruns of Murder, She Wrote. But instead of escaping into television, we ended up talking for hours about kids, aging, disappointment, and healing. Then something unexpected happened. She posted a photo of us on Facebook, wine glasses in hand, captioned, "If your son forgets to invite you to the wedding, girls' night becomes the reception you deserved." The comments started pouring in. Some were funny. Cheers to the better party. Others weren't. One woman wrote, "My daughter-in-law banned me from my grandson's birthday. You're not alone." Another said, I paid for my daughter's dress, never got a thank you, let alone an invite. And then sometimes they cut us off without using scissors. They just stop including us. It hit me then. This wasn't just my pain, it was ours. I wasn't a one off failure of a mother. I was part of a quiet epidemic mothers, erased from milestones they helped build. That gave me a strange kind of strength. I started writing, nothing fancy, just my story, typed out over a few nights. I titled it The Wedding That Happened Without Me. I didn't use Brandon's name. I wasn't out for revenge. I just needed to be heard. I posted it anonymously to a support forum for estranged parents. Within 24 hours, I got over 300 replies. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. This healed something I didn't even know was broken. I sobbed reading this. You are not alone. I'd spent so long wondering if I was the problem, but these messages reminded me that love doesn't always look like what we hoped it would, and that sometimes love from strangers can stitch wounds better than silence from family. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Elaine, 67, from Michigan. Your story could be mine. My daughter told me my presence would distract from her aesthetic. We haven't spoken since. I'd love to talk, even just over email. Sometimes it helps. So I replied. And we wrote. Then we called. Then we FaceTimed. And for the first time since the wedding, I started to feel like myself again. Not the mother of the groom, not the woman left out, just Carol. A woman who still had stories to tell, laughter to share, and a life to live, even if her son chose not to be part of it. One afternoon, about 2 months after the wedding, I received a letter. Yason, actual physical letter in an envelope with a return address I didn't recognize. For a moment, I thought maybe it was a thank you note. A part of Meridiculous, as it sounds, still hoped for that. That maybe Brandon and Kelly realized what they'd done and wanted to make it right. But when I opened the envelope, it wasn't from either of them. It was from Kelly's mother, Linda. Her handwriting was elegant, almost too perfect, like someone who'd practiced writing notes for years at the country club. Dear Carol, I wanted to reach out to say thank you for your contribution to Brandon and Kelly's special day. It turned out beautifully, and your generosity did not go unnoticed. That sentence alone made my blood boil. Unnoticed? I wasn't even there. I understand that family dynamics can be complex. While I don't pretend to know all the details, I hope you can find peace in knowing that your son had a wonderful celebration surrounded by love. Surrounded by love. Except the woman who raised him. Except the person who sacrificed everything to get him there. Warm regards, Linda Ashcroft. No apology, no explanation, just a neat little bow and a slap in the face. I sat with the letter in my lap for a long time. And then I laughed. Not out of joy, but one of those laughs that comes from somewhere deep, somewhere angry and tired. It was absurd, this whole thing. But then something shifted because that laugh, it felt freeing. That's when I realized I had been waiting for Brandon to apologize, for Kelly to reach out, for someone in one to see me to say, you didn't deserve this. But I already had that. I had it in Elaine's voice on our weekly calls. I had it in Judy's hand on my shoulder. I had it in the hundreds of comments and stories shared by women just like me. I didn't need their permission to move forward. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I booked a cruise, 7 nights, No Wi Fi, no pressure, no obligations. Just ocean, strangers, and the chance to remember who I was before I became a mother whose child could erase her. And you know what? It was beautiful. I met a woman named Rena who just divorced after 40 years. A couple from New Mexico who traveled every January to escape the cold. And a man, James, who wore old boat shoes and smelled faintly of cinnamon. He told terrible jokes and called me red because of the scarf I wore the first night. For the first time in years, I danced, not out of obligation or tradition, but because the music moved me. I wasn't thinking of Brandon or Kelly or Linda and her perfect cursive. I was thinking of me, who I'd been, and who I still was. A few weeks after I returned from the cruise, I received a text message from an unknown number. Hi, Mom. It's Brandon. Can we talk? My stomach twisted. Not because I didn't want to hear from him, but because I wasn't sure I trusted myself to respond. I stared at the message for hours, literally hours. I replayed every birthday party, every scraped knee, every school lunch I ever packed. And then I replayed the silence, the wedding, the letter from Linda. Eventually, I wrote back, we can talk, but not about the wedding, not unless you're ready to be honest. He replied within minutes, I am. I messed up. 3 words, but they hit like thunder. I agreed to meet him the following weekend, public place, no drama. We sat across from each other at a quiet diner. He looked older, tired, like someone who hadn't been sleeping well. First of all, he said, I owe you more than an apology. I waited. Kelly didn't want you there, he admitted. She said you'd make it about you, that you'd judge her family. She convinced me it would be easier this way. And you believed that? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked down. I did. I let her talk me into thinking you'd be difficult or dramatic, that you'd ruin the day. I shook my head. I paid for the day. I know, he whispered, and I hate that I let her poison that moment. I was weak. I sipped my coffee, unsure what to say. He continued, she didn't want me to reach out after, said it'd just reopen wounds. But then I saw the photos of your cruise. Elaine posted them. You looked happy, free. I raised an eyebrow. You're stalking your aunt's Facebook now? He chuckled, sheepish. Maybe, but it made me realize I missed you, and I'd been wrong. About a lot. I took a breath, let it sit. I'm glad you finally saw it, I said, but Brandon, this wound isn't just about a party. It's about feeling invisible. I get that now, he nodded, and I want to make it right. You can't undo what happened, but you can decide who you want to be going forward. We talked for another hour about small things, big things, quietly, cautiously. When we hugged goodbye, it wasn't cinematic, it was awkward, hesitant, but it was something. Later that night, I called Elaine. I saw Brandon. I told her. She gasped. And? And I listened. I didn't forgive everything, but I heard him out, and I think he heard me too. You're stronger than I am, she said. Number, I just got tired of waiting for a version of the past that never came. Weeks passed. Slowly, quietly. Brandon and I texted now and then safe messages, nothing too deep. He'd check in, send a photo from the office, ask if I'd seen a new movie. I appreciated the effort, even if the scars were still tender. Then one afternoon, as I was watering the garden, my phone buzzed. We'd like to invite you to dinner at our place. Just you. No surprises. Brandon, I stood there, hose in hand, watching water spill over the edge of a flower pot. I didn't answer right away. But something inside me, the same part that had survived grief, betrayal, and silence, whispered, "Go. Not for them, for you." So I did. The house was tidy, too tidy, like they'd scrubbed it to impress me. Kelly answered the door in a soft pink blouse, her hair curled just right. She looked nervous. "Hi, Carol," she said. "Come in." The dining table was set for three: candles, napkins, wine already uncorked. Brandon gave me a quick hug, still unsure of the boundaries. Kelly gestured toward the table. "We made roast chicken. It's your favorite, right?" I sat down slowly, like I was easing into cold water. Dinner was polite, tense, then a little less tense. At one point, Kelly cleared her throat. "I want to apologize," she said, looking me in the eye. What I did, was cruel. I was wrong." I blinked. I thought I was protecting our day. But really, I was protecting my own pride. It was more than I expected, but I didn't smile. Not yet. "You didn't just exclude me," I said. "You erased me. From photos, from memories, from my son's life." She nodded. "I know, and I hate that I can't undo it." There was silence then, long and thick, until I picked up my glass. "Well, this chicken's not bad." They both exhaled, almost laughing. No, it wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. Months later, something strange happened. I was invited to a local women's club meeting by my friend Elaine. A guest speaker was reading excerpts from personal essays about family dynamics and betrayal. One of the stories hit me in the gut. It was my story. Changed slightly, fictionalized maybe, but the bones of it, the pain, the erasure, the rediscovery, they were mine. After the reading, I approached the woman who'd read it. "Where did you find that piece?" I asked. She smiled. "It was submitted anonymously to our editorial team. We thought it might resonate." I nodded. It did. That night, I pulled out my old journal, the one I'd kept since the wedding. I opened to the first page, the one that had nothing but a title: How to Grieve the Living. I picked up my pen and wrote beneath it, Step 1, remember who you are without them. There are still moments, quiet ones, where the sting comes back. When I see a wedding on television, when someone says, "Oh, you must be so proud of your son." But I don't carry the weight like I used to. I don't beg for a seat at tables I paid for. Now, I build my own, and the people who sit with me, they do so because they see me, not as a placeholder, not as a wallet, not as someone to be managed, but as a woman who survived being forgotten and chose to remember herself. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. If this story reminded you of something you've lived through, please know this: you are not alone. You are not invisible. And your voice, it matters more than they ever let you believe. So, subscribe to this channel for more stories like mine, and comment below where you're watching from. Let's see how far our voices can reach. Because when we speak, really speak, we remind the world we are still here, and we are not done yet.